Welcome to Stirring a Bubbling Cauldron, episode number 7. So, mais bon, boring. I know. That's what I thought. At least until I started to think of it in another way. I know, it doesn't seem like it's very exciting. We're on to Samhain already. Even the stores are advertising Halloween already. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We'll live in the present, right? Mindfulness and all. Well, before we jump head over heels into Samhain, indulge me for a moment while I appreciate mais bon in the context of the power of connecting to Earth cycles. So all the pagan Sabbats and festivals were based on Earth cycles. You know this, paganism in general, for that matter, was based on Earth cycles. Did you know that Samhain is also determined by an Earth cycle? It was never supposed to fall on October 31st every year. It's officially the first full moon nearest November 1st. Well, not today it isn't. Now it's a set day, as you know. Well, let's just say it's easier to market that 8 billion, yes, 8 billion with a B, dollar industry that it's become. Annually, in the US alone, first the church hijacks our Sabbats, and then commercialism does it. Well, that's a rant for another day. Spoiler alert. Might be next week. Anyway, today's rant, deep dive, is all about how we've had artificial, natural cycles shoved down our throats and what that's done to us from a physical, emotional, and even spiritual perspective. Losing our connection to natural cycles is no bueno for our magic. No, that was supposed to be today's topic, but alas, I got sidetracked down a rabbit hole, so you get the rabbit hole version instead. Who is it that's responsible for holding the space in the world for true cycles of the earth and the cosmos? Witches, of course. Who else? With great wisdom comes great responsibility, right? You've all heard that. So, take a look in the mirror, my wise friend. Are you performing your witchly duty to uphold this responsibility? Are you doing your part to bring healing to yourself and the world by living in sync with the natural cycles of the earth? I'll bet you are. You know how I know that? Because you're a witch, or at least you're interested in being one if you're watching this. So tell me, what do you do to stay connected and in sync? Breathwork maybe? Grounding? Sun gazing? Moon gazing? Herb collecting? Magic in general. Because magic itself is a connection to the world of nature. And if you do anything with the underlying intention of connecting with the earth, then congratulate yourself, because it takes a lot of effort in today's world. The ways of the modern world have disconnected us from even the natural cycles of our own bodies, much less the earth and the cosmos. To function in the world today, we're forced to live by clocks that are not connected to our natural cycles, by calendars developed by the patriarchal church that define the weeks, the months, the years in ways that alter and disconnect us from those natural cycles. And then there's daylight savings time. I don't know about you, but it never saved any time for me. It just messes with my circadian clock. Is there a better calendar out there? Well, since the one we're currently using was dictated by the Catholic Church, my first instinct would be to say yes. But, it turns out it really depends on your purpose and lifestyle. So, no, guess there doesn't seem to be a single calendar choice that would be best for everyone. And the Gregorian calendar that we use today has, months of different days. And it has to be adjusted every 4 years in a leap year to even come back into what they call accurate. Some months have 1 full moon and some have 2. But, the Julian calendar we used before this was no better. And quite honestly, the solar calendar doesn't divide equally. And the straight lunar calendar, it doesn't divide out or cross-sync with any of the others either. So we live with what we've got. Now, I like a 13-moon calendar, or I should say a 13-month calendar, but that still doesn't combine with traditional calendar that everyone else uses. So to function in the world, I still have to use them both. Because until I find another way, my life is still, unfortunately, intertwined with all those other people who use the standard 12-month calendar. So bottom line is, although I might not really like it, the calendar doesn't really matter, does it? And that's the good news. It doesn't really matter. Because as Einstein said, time doesn't really exist in the way we think of it anyway. So, a calendar of any kind just gives us a way to record events as a collective so that we can each understand what the other person is talking about and when it was talked about or is to be talked about. But even our current calendar got messed up because we lost a year when somebody decided to convert the system from CE to AD since there was no 0 year, and another approximate 6 years when the birth of Christ was rethought to be 7 AD and not 1 AD, because the Bible keeps contradicting itself. And all of that was decided 500 years after the fact anyway. But all that aside, we can still do things to connect to the earth and natural cycles, despite the rest of the world. Most just don't. Doesn't even cross their mind to. Would you agree that on any given day, 95% of the population of the world do not have any clue what phase the moon is in? And when you ask them, do you think they simply would look up into the night sky? Nope. They'll Google it on their phone. The skies could be absolutely full of spaceships and flying pigs for that matter, and we'd never know it because most people never look up at the sky. Sky's no longer a source of awe and wonder. We have Netflix. Oh, speaking of that, did anyone else start watching the new episode of Lucifer this week? Yeah, see how quickly we can be distracted by things like Netflix? Is it important? No, but it's entertaining. The wonders of the sky just don't mean anything to most people in their daily lives. I guess the sky just doesn't move fast enough to be entertaining. As a humanity, we're out of sync. Even our music is out of sync. It's out of sync with what's considered to be healthy and best for us. And I'm not talking about classic or rock. It's about all of it. It's scaled to 440 hertz, which has been shown to increase stress and anxiety, while the non-standard 432 scale is considered to be the vibration of the planet itself, of nature itself. It's more soothing to the ears, resonates with increased peace and calm and healing, even creates a spiritual connection, which is disrupted by the 440 frequency scale. So what happened? When did we decide this 440 scale should be the end-all, be-all of music? Well, It is said to be introduced by Joseph Goebbels. Now, who the hey is that, you ask? Well, turns out he was the Nazi minister of propaganda. Interesting. Well, whether that's true or not, in 1953 it was signed into worldwide use as the official tuning standard. You can still find music tuned to 432 and other scales for that matter. Listen to them. Compare for yourself and see what you think. Interestingly, Jimi Hendrix used 432, as do Tibetan crystal singing bowls, just to give you a place to start. So, we're out of sync. We know it. So what? Does syncing better with the natural cycles of the earth matter to our physical or psychological or spiritual well-being? And does being connected or disconnected affect magic? And everyone said, yes. In short, yes. Definitely yes. You knew that. I encourage you to start consciously connecting, or connect at a deeper level, and see how it affects your life, your magic. Just being more in touch with the heartbeat of the earth, the Schumann resonance alone, can make a huge difference in the way you feel. Sure, as long as we're in the Earth's atmosphere and stepping on the Earth from time to time, we have a certain amount of exposure to that Earth's heartbeat. Enough not to die anyway, but not consistently to be healthy, thanks to rubber-soled shoes and interference from man-made EMFs and electronic noise, just to name a few. And guess what? That resonance itself fluctuates too on any given day and throughout the day. It's affected by geomagnetism and solar activity. So, do you think it affects you too? More than you may realize. Even NASA had to recreate the Schumann resonance to keep the astronauts from getting weak and sick while they were in space. In addition to the importance of the Schumann resonance, the sun has natural cycles that are important to us too. And for most of us, thanks to COVID perhaps, we don't get out into the sun nearly as much as we used to, and we probably didn't get enough exposure to the sun before. Likely we haven't since we were kids, playing outside all day. And many people in the northern climates suffer from something called seasonal affective disorder, SAD. And it's a result of reduced exposure to sunlight. And yes, it makes them sad. But we're told that the sun is dangerous. Stay out of the sun. Never leave the house without sunblock. And don't go into the sun without dark glasses. And never, ever, ever look at the sun. Did you know that the most important things that you get from the sun, that your body, mind, your psyche get from the sun, are far more easily absorbed through your eyes? And the benefits of the sun that you get through your skin, like that vital vitamin D, yeah, you get it through your skin too, but you need the UV rays to get it. And those are blocked by the sunglasses and the sunscreen. Okay, I know. People are concerned about skin cancer. Don't get me started. Seriously. This kind of feels like a prompting rant day, but don't get me started on that. Okay. Moving on. The sun has predictable patterns, and you can work with those. They happen in 11-year cycles, approximately. Things like the intensity of solar flares are cyclical, and those affect the Earth's electromagnetic field. At times, they're so powerful that they can disrupt the electrical and radio signals, our utility grids, our phones, personal computers. They can cause earthquakes and seismic activity. So again, you think it can affect you too? Yeah, well, changes in those solar activity patterns do have a direct effect on our brain waves and our heart state. Your blood pressure can rise and fall in response to those solar flares. And your thymus gland can malfunction as well, or change function as well, creating that fluttering in your chest that is considered by some to be a spiritual awakening signal. Well, yeah, maybe the sun affects our spiritual awakening as well. The ancients thought so. It affects our sleep patterns, and more creativity flows. It flows more freely during those periods of heightened solar activity. So when the solar storms are happening, call in for that sick day and write your manuscript. Our brain and body react to it. Even the stock market activity and crashes have been mapped to solar activity dating back to the 1800s. So if you're feeling off today, check to see if there's still a higher level of solar activity today before you panic or increase your blood pressure meds. So how do you connect? How do you check those solar activity levels? Well, thanks to the internet, the resources are easy to find. Oh, and on a side note, for those of you practicing to improve your dowsing, this is a great way to do it. Ask. And then look it up for verification and see how accurate your pendulum dowsing was. Okay, well, I do check it from time to time, mostly out of interest, because honestly, I don't personally use a lot of solar energy in my practice. But, well, I sun gaze for health and photon gathering, and just because it's a really magical experience. But it has powerful applications. Dates back to Egypt and the time even before, in more ancient times. So if you use the sun, please enlighten me and tell me about your process. Okay. I've had enough about this forceful, explosive masculine energy. Let's get on to one of my favorites. Let's talk about one that I tend to think we all love the most. Moon energy. You intuitively know it. Nobody has to tell you that the moon can be a powerful ally in magic. Yeah? Yeah. But is there science behind it? Well, you've come to the right place because, yes, science does show that the moon has powerful effects on the Earth and on us personally. The presence of the moon stabilizes the Earth's orbit. And, as you know, it's capable of pulling the whole ocean. You're about 80% water, so doesn't it make sense that it could affect you as well? Well, even studies show that it does. So if you're like most people, you sleep fewer hours during the full moon and go to bed later. I always see people saying how much trouble they have sleeping during a full moon. And it's not just because there's more light in the sky. And then in the converse, I should say, it's no surprise that during the new moon, you're likely to sleep more. So don't fight it. Use it, flow with it, plan around these patterns. Official studies conflict about the effects of the moon phases on psychotic episodes. I know you see some that say it doesn't matter at all, others that say it does. But you know what? If you ask any policeman or hospital worker, you'll hear a fairly consistent report that it does. Most people should be able to feel it, right? But they're just so disconnected from their body these days for most people. They don't feel it. Because if they did, they wouldn't be asking this question of the so-called experts. They just know. Because people might acquire information and read, but for most, they lack awareness. They lack experiential knowing of these things. not for witches, right? We're a proud and exceptional people who love to experience the real energy of the world around us. As witches, we know that the moon has power, that it's about feminine energy. So, let's talk about feminine things, the ways of the woman. Men, I know we tend to outnumber you in this practice, but just stick around, listen up, because there is no reason you should be uncomfortable with natural cycles of life, womanhood included. Believe me, because we talk about your manhood all the time, right, ladies? But if you're offended, all right, if you just can't take it, go ahead, check out now. But I guarantee you that if you turn this off, you'll miss something important. Some important insights into the women in your life, perhaps, but also some important tips on how you, even the men, can benefit by connecting more. Okay. Men, out of courtesy, I'll wait. Okay, enough. The queasy ones, you gone? Good. So, many a mother yearns for the day of crondom. But if you haven't crossed that bridge yet, I say honor the stage you're in. Sure, there's great wisdom available to you as a crone, but there is a great power in the time of menses, too. Don't miss it trying to rush on to the next stage. Did you know that humans are the only mammals that have regular monthly reproductive cycles? For most mammals, hormone levels and reproductive abilities sync to the proximity of male pheromones. So that makes us pretty special. Yeah, human females are pretty darn special, in case you needed to be told that today. And we don't need the men around to do what we do. Hello. So on some level, you all know that menstruation has a strong connection to the moon, or at least it's supposed to. Now, menses are meant to be on a 29-day cycle, like the moon, yet it's interesting to note that several studies have shown us that only about 28% of women begin their cycle around the new moon in today's modern society. And only about half of all women start at either the new moon or the full moon. The rest are just randomly scattered all over the place. And I think the yogic texts were onto something. They say that women are healthier when they're in sync with lunar cycles. So it should come as no surprise that women whose menses are in sync with the new moon have a greater chance of becoming pregnant to begin with. So, consider getting in sync, especially if you're among those millions of women who struggle with infertility issues. Now, getting pregnant more easily may not be a plus for you, but that being said, it is what the system was designed to do, so the ability to do it more easily should be a sign of better health. Even delivering a baby syncs to the new moon. Did you know that more natural childbirths happen on full moon nights? Well, in 2021, a study showed that women's cycles may have all once been synced to the moon, and that artificial light and modern lifestyles may have disrupted the link. Now, I don't know about you, but I didn't need to be told that. And just being in regular proximity to women in sync can help the whole group of women synchronize better. They synchronize together. We see this in women who work together or live in community. From a spiritual and cultural perspective, menses were the moon time. For many native tribes, this moon time held great power and strength for women. So, ladies, listen up, follow their lead. Embrace your power as witches and women. It wasn't a dreaded time. It was a time for rest, reflection, yes, a time when women were able to slough off the experiences and stress that accumulated just from being a woman. Because, yeah, men hunted, they might have brought home the bacon, but like today, the women worked as well. And in fact, a woman's work was never done, just like today. Yeah, just like today as well. Their experiences were sometimes painful, and yet it was considered a process which should not be interrupted. Not by the women, and certainly not by the men. I think it's interesting, well, more angering sometimes actually, that most of the writings today, probably by men, stated or implied that women were basically banished to go through their curse, as they were unclean at that time. Probably propaganda by the church to keep women from embracing their power and give the men the air of superiority over them. But maybe that's just me. What do you think? In many traditional societies, women were the highest spiritual leaders, and rightfully so. It was the women who had the connection to the Creator, based, if nothing else, on the ability to create another living person. But when spoken in the words of the ancient tribes, this was not an unclean time, but a time of honoring and power. It was not only allowed, but expected that during these days, women would take private time, either alone or with other women, sometimes visiting the sacred moontime pond to perform rituals, talking to the moon, asking for and finding renewed balance. Today, people, men included, who take time in ritualistic moon practice report benefits in mood, energy, and spiritual connection. Science may not confirm this officially, but honestly, some things just don't need science to confirm. I know from personal experience that once my body started syncing regularly with the lunar cycles, life changed for the better, as did my relationships. I've been told over and over again, usually by men, that I was the only woman in the office or wherever who they didn't ever know, they couldn't ever tell that it was that time of the month. I no longer had those normal monthly mood swings, not even during pregnancy. Because, I don't think they have to be normal. And I don't think for many they're necessary. In all fairness, though, I have to say, being a vegetarian may have helped my body find that balance more easily. Because, there's a lot of artificial hormones that the industry adds to meat and milk. Not saying you need to be a vegetarian. Everybody's body's different, but just saying. So, now for the fun part. How do you do it? How do you and the moon become powerful allies? Well, for one, become more aware of the moon and its phases. Operate daily with less artificial light in your life. If you work, when you play, especially when you sleep. Do it without digital and artificial lights in your room to the extent you can. You can also engage in more inward activities at the new moon and more social activities around the full moon. Hey, get out there and howl at the moon with some friends. Direct your energy with specific intention throughout the lunar cycle, and especially during your menses, if you still have them. So logic says that the moon is only a reflection from the sun. And while this may be technically true, there's so much more to it. So much more. You know that. I don't have to tell you. Know that there's something truly magical and mystical about the moon and your connection to it. Even the tarot backs it up. Tarot readers out there, you know, a symbol of the moon appearing on any card has always represented femininity, cycles, emotions, the world of the subconscious. Consider the fact that the sun and the moon, the masculine and the feminine, come into alignment in certain ways that create 12 basic cycles of the moon, the 12 basic lunar phases, despite the fact that only 2 are typically thought of. With the full moon being considered the feminine, and the new moon having more of the masculine traits. If you're going to be able to connect your desired outcome to a meaningful lunar phase, and I'm talking ritual here, then you need to be clear about what each phase represents. You know, I hear people all the time saying that they're confused about which lunar phase is best to do what kind of ritual. So, yeah, thinking of them in terms of masculine and feminine phases might help, but here's another way that I like to think about moon phases that's really helped me plan rituals over the years. Maybe it helps you too. So consider the moon as a bowl of light. And when that bowl of light is full of light at the full moon, it's time to celebrate all the goodness and light you have in your life. It's full. It has an abundance of light. A lot to celebrate here. Then, to bring in more light, you need to make more room. So it turns into a time to become reflective and look inside for the things that are no longer serving you. Release them. Release them with love and gratitude, either for the pleasure or the lessons they've brought you. They're actually released along with the diminishing light as the moon moves toward the next phase. Now, during that phase, as the time they're being released, doing it creates an emptiness. It creates room for new things to come in and fill it up with light again. At the new moon, the dark moon as some prefer, there's now plenty of room to bring in all those new and wonderful things into your life that you desire. The manifestation of your desires happens as the new moon fills back with light again. And it starts all over at the full moon once again. It's a never-ending cycle of celebration, anticipation at the full moon, followed by releasing things and making room, and then bringing those things back into fullness again. It's a wonderful cyclical practice. But remember that a spell is a spell is a spell. So, if there's something you want to work on, no need to wait for the right moon phase. Just word it a little differently. Bring it on, it's all good. Now, we love to experience the full moon and the new moon, yet consider the importance of the first quarter and the last quarter, where the masculine and feminine, the light, the dark, are in total balance. Maybe this is the perfect and most valuable time for certain rituals. What do you think? What could be done at this time that would make it especially meaningful? So rather than performing rituals and your spells at a certain time because that's when someone told you that was the best time to do them, you know, thinking's allowed. Yeah, thinking is allowed. At least it is in my practice. I hope it is in yours. So, also take note that the Earth's cycles resemble the lunar cycles, with these 2 quarter phases being like the spring and the fall equinoxes, Astara and Mabon, when the light and the dark are completely balanced. Very powerful times as well. And yeah, Mabon is upon us. Next week, in fact. Make good use of it. This year, the light and dark balance of Mabon, which is sometimes considered pagan Thanksgiving, falls at the full moon. What could that combination bring to your ritual? Mabon is also a time for finishing projects and clearing out mental and physical clutter in preparation for a restful winter. So, what other tools can I use to get more in sync with the natural cycles of the moon, you may ask? Well, consider making moon water. You can use it in the traditional way, or you can use it as a tool to synchronize to the moon's phases. Remember, water has memory, and it acts like a quasi-homeopathic way to distribute those infused energies to every cell in your body. So, use it, and you can program it not just at the full moon, or program a crystal with the energy of the moon at each of its primary phases. Then carry or wear that crystal at meaningful times to entrain that lunar vibration to your body cycles. Yeah, entrainment, again, another very important and powerful tool from the world of physics. As are crystals in general. They hold an energetic frequency. Why do you think quartz crystals are used in computer chips and to make watches keep good time? Okay, moon gazing. Here's another one. Love this one. Not only is it a good meditative practice, but it also helps you take notice of the moon. Duh. As a direct experience, notice that the moon not only phases through the amount of light it reflects, but it also moves through the sky as the night progresses. And notice how its placement in the sky changes as the seasons change. Soon you may find your cycles in balance. Yeah, your menses perhaps, but also your mental cycle, your flow. You'll flow more easily. Your emotions will rebalance and be more balanced and flowing, and your intuition will increase as well. The moon is a rich source of self-care. So indulge in a moon bath. It can be deeply healing, relaxing, and just plain feel good. Let it take you back to your remembrance of the sacred moontime pools. In the days long ago, when you may have participated in these rituals, perhaps in ancient Lemuria, or among a native tribe somewhere in your Akashic history. Men, hopefully you stayed. You may have been women. No, you have been women at various points throughout your reincarnations as well. So this includes you too. Let that wisdom of these times flood over you as the water does. Maybe there's a moon club in your area, or find a moon buddy, someone to share your experiences with. Not necessarily to bathe together, but hey, why not? Share in a ritual jacuzzi or soak in a hot springs or a tide pool together. When we're in tune and in sync, life opens. Life flows, our intuition flows, our knowingness flows. Do it. Make a commitment. Get out there under the moon. Howl a little if it makes you feel good. I know I do. So, before I close, and speaking of doing things in flow and not, you may have noticed that Drakina has not been with us for the past few weeks. Now, I want you all to know that I love her dearly, and we really tried to make this work together. Unfortunately, for a variety of reasons, including, cross-country logistics and technology issues and just the scheduling challenges around life in general. No matter how hard we tried, it just wasn't going to work. So we've decided that it's best for both of us to bring our messages to the world separately in our own ways. Now, I'll be continuing these weekly episodes, sometimes solo, and sometimes with a guest. And I know that Durkina will find her voice and bring something wonderful to the world in her own time. Who knows? Maybe she'll even make a guest appearance here at some point in the future. I hope so, because I know she has much to offer the world as well. So, thanks for sticking through to the end. And until next week, get in sync and live using and believing in the power of magic.